Welcome to the Vocal Fries Podcast, the podcast about linguistic discrimination.
I'm Carrie Gillen.
And I'm Megan Figueroa.
And today we have a few housekeeping items before we begin. So the first thing is we recorded this episode during the Linguistics Society of America, or the LSA conference this year. And so it was in a hotel room. So the sound quality might be a little off.
Yes. We were sitting around a table in a hotel room, and it was freezing outside.
That day it was not yet freezing. Later it did freeze. It did snow.
Yeah.
Which was exciting for those of us who live in the desert.
Yeah. And who didn't have altitude sickness and was stuck in the hotel room the whole day. Anyway.
Yeah, so this episode is going to be more like what our bonus episodes are going to be like, and that gives us the opportunity to talk about our Patreon.
Yes, so we joined Patreon, and we already have a few subscribers.
Yes, so thank you, Anne, Daniel, Lingthusiasm, and Suzanne.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
So there are 3 levels. If you are able to support us, we would love to have you as supporters.
Yes.
We have a $1 level, which is we just thank you for supporting us. We have a $3 level where you get a sticker. Your name is announced on the air. And then we also have a $5 level where you get the sticker, your name announced, and also you get access to the bonus episodes. So this episode is kind of in the vein of what those bonus episodes are going to be like. And we are going to record a real bonus episode this month about Word of the Year, which was part of the LSA as well.
Yes, and the sticker that you get features the adorable fries. It's very cute. I think we tweeted it out, right? A picture of the sticker.
I think we did. And if we didn't, shame on us.
Yes. It's very cute.
Yeah.
So
this episode we had a chance to interview the Lingthusiasm hosts, Gretchen McCulloch and Lauren Gawne, which we all pronounce incorrectly because we don't have the correct vowel.
Yeah, but she's nice and says that it's okay to pronounce it like Gawne, as in Gone Girl. Yes.
So we also want to tell everybody that most of our episodes are on YouTube now. So if you prefer to access episodes that way, or if you know people who prefer to watch a video as opposed to listen, you can do that. And we're also slowly adding transcripts for our episodes. We don't have a paid transcriptionist, so we're just doing it ourselves. And so it will take a long time, but we are slowly adding them. And our first one is up.
Yeah, and we're very excited about doing that because we are, of course, really trying to make this as accessible as possible. And ultimately, I think a Patreon goal of ours is to pay someone to do it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So bear with us. Carrie did the first one. Thank you so much, Carrie. But yeah, it's definitely a goal.
Right. And we also want to remind people of our email address, vocalfriespod@gmail.com. Okay, so now we have an interview with Gretchen McCulloch and Lauren Gawne of Lingthusiasm.
And today is really exciting. We are sitting in a hotel room with the Lingthusiasts.
The Lingthusiasms?
I don't know. Do you...
The co-hosts of Lingthusiasm?
Oh, but that's too long.
I like Lingthusiasts.
We call our listeners Lingthusiasts too, but that's good.
Can you and your listeners be the same name?
I don't know.
I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're all on the same level. We're all people.
We're all friends
We're
here.
all enthusiastic about linguistics.
Yeah,
So that's what
exactly.
matters.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have Gretchen McCulloch.
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
I
I
was
was
enthusiastic about that.
No,
You just seemed
well,
to
it's
do
because
it.
I was staring at you to see if I said your name right.
Yeah, I say McCulloch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because other people, there are other
People say McCulloch, but I don't know. It's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have Lauren Green.
For such a short name, my name is complicated. It's Lauren Gawne.
I say I don't have that.
I was
vowel.
never gonna get there.
So
You can say Gawne, like homophonous with G-O-N-E is fine as
like
well.
Gone Girl, like Ben Affleck.
Yeah,
Gone Girl?
that is me.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I say Lauren Gawne, and she says that's okay.
Lauren Gone, but it's the sound in like what?
It's the open O.
Okay.
Which we've talked about before.
We have talked about this.
And none of us, except for Lauren, have that one.
yeah.
So.
And she's Australian.
Yes. So
So-
Gawne and Gawne are two. So Lauren Gawne watched Gone Girl. They're two different vowels for me.
For you, but not
Yeah.
for us.
But I'll make it easy for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't unmerge just for you, Lauren.
Yeah.
Unmerge on that one word only.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about American and British hegemony.
Sure. Well, we were actually just going to suggest that we talk about Australian and Canadian English because they're the Englishes we speak and have the most experience
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. So the American is outnumbered this time.
Yes. I mean, as we should be. I mean, we're really fucking things up. So.
I forgot to ask if this podcast had swearing.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
totally. We have the explicit rating. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, our tagline's don't be an asshole. Even just with that, we get an E.
There is that.
Yeah.
That thing.
So, well, yes, then, like all of our other episodes, I will probably learn the most here.
This time, definitely, I think. All right. So where did you guys want to begin? What?
I think we want to begin with keyboards because that's
Ah.
where a lot of our
Oh.
frustration manifests. So when you have to select in like a spell checker on a document, it's almost always do you want British or American English as though they are the two. And even if you choose something like Canadian or Australian English, often it's like it was made by someone who has never actually spoken to a Canadian or an Australian. And there's kind of a lot of, some of it is like orthographic convention stuff. So it's the, we both use ISE instead of
Oh, I
IZE.
use IZE a fair bit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's this whole other diglossia thing we
Yeah.
can get into.
In terms of like Canadians use Z, but in terms of words like realize or analyze, I would tend to use IZE. But when I choose Canadian English as from a spell checker, it will try to correct me to ISE on those words. But you get the opposite, right?
Yeah, so Australian English follows British conventions in this regard, but on a lot of spell checkers, if you tick Australian English, they'll tell you that it should be IZE, and it's like, no.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
So there's like this kind of like delocalization problem where they're like, if you pick Canadian English, it just maps you onto British English instead, or vice versa for Australian
Yeah.
English.
Wait, and that's going to be widespread in Australia that you use the S.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So they're not people that some of them use Z.
No. I mean, unless I'm writing for an American publication, and then I will tailor it, So I think
Okay.
we become very good, and I've noticed that's a thing Canadians do as well, is flipping back and forth between...
Right.
Yeah, like I would use both depending on who I'm talking to and what I'm feeling like, and I feel like spell checkers don't reflect that stylistic choice. They're like, you must pick a thing and do it, and like some words I'm more likely to use ISE on, and some words I'm more likely to use IZE on, and
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Or it should just figure out in this document, I'm clearly writing for an American audience and it's going to be IZE throughout.
Yeah, we run into this problem. So we also have a podcast, as you well know, so we do our captions for we do transcriptions for the podcast, and we do that by uploading our episodes to YouTube and having YouTube's auto captioner figure out what we're saying in a very bad version, and then we have a human go in and edit that rather than have a human try to do it all, so it's faster that way. But we have to pick a language that it thinks the talk is in.
Right.
And our choices, along with a couple other languages, French and so on, we can pick between British English and American English in a show that's hosted by a Canadian and an Australian. And what we'd really like to be able to do is say, hey, there are two speakers here.
Yes.
One of us has ours and the other one doesn't.
Yes.
Two
Which is
speakers
pretty
of two
important.
very different dialects of English.
Two very different dialects. And, maybe you could detect two different voices because our voices sound fairly different. And then also to say, and you should be mapping us onto two different standards, because if you for me, if I think American English, it's like mostly okay, but for you, you're going to get a better job with British English because he doesn't expect you to have ours.
Yeah, and look, I should point out, like, we both speak highly standardized,
Yes.
highly educated varieties of the English that we speak. And in terms of the scale of linguistic discrimination, we are not really, complaining about IZE over ISE is not really the kind of discrimination that a lot of people face and is like really bad. But it's really frustrating to be invisible in global English and you see, like, if we can't even get people talking about more than British and American English, how are we going to get people to talk about kind of lower status varieties of British English or varieties of American English that are negatively stereotyped if we can't get people to think more broadly about the varieties of English that there are?
Or Indian English or Singapore English or
Yeah. Like South African English is a whole other, like, there's
I love it. Listen, South African.
and like there's lots of Englishes, and other languages are also pluricentric. So this is a problem that comes up with French in particular, because I live in Montreal, and French has this very high prestige associated with, especially Parisian French or European French, and so like Montreal kids Quebec kids get taught in schools European French because that's like the better French. And kids in a lot of like the former French colonies get taught like France French, even if the French that's spoken there is a very different variety. And so like French, English has two centers, and that's a problem. And French only has one, and that's also a problem. Like a lot of the Spanish is very different in very different countries. Like there's a lot of the languages that we think of as like major world languages are actually have more complexity than we think of.
Yes.
them.
Yeah, it's interesting. The two things have already come up that we've talked about before. So the AI, automatic speech recognition stuff. So we talked about that with Rachel Tatman, and how, and what she was looking at with the YouTube comments was just gender and how women's voices are less well transcribed. And then we also talked about Canadian French in our last episode.
She's so great.
She is. Anyway.
Well, this reminds me that I guess it wasn't too long ago that the Microsoft Word added grammar as one of the things that it'll underline for you.
Wait, that's not new.
Is that new?
No. No.
Like in the last 10 years.
No. The whole time I've been using Word, it's had it.
It's just that you automatically disable it because it's so terrible.
It used to be worse. Now it's...
So maybe I got a new computer and then it had it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably
all right. Well, we
Mystery
solved that
solved.
mystery. But, okay, so if we're thinking about the grammar, like what if you use double negatives? Or what if...
you use the passive.
Yeah. Because I think it would mark double negatives.
Of course it would.
Yeah.
It's very standard.
It marks the passive even, like, so I was reading this book by Anne Curzan, who's also here at the LSA annual meeting, and she's got this book about, like, the history of standardizing English, fixing English, I think it's called, about the history of English standardization. And one of her chapters is about, like, questioning the authority of Microsoft Word to underline your words. Like, by what right and by whose rules do you get to underline this?
Yes.
And people who think a lot about, she surveyed her colleagues in the English department, and, even though they have advanced English degrees, they'd never thought about, like, where does Microsoft Word get its ideas? And what kind of outdated and never correct in the first place grammar stereotypes is it perpetuating?
Very good. We should read that.
Yeah, we should.
We should talk to her too.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you should just talk to her anyway.
Yes.
I know.
She's on the list.
She's definitely on the list.
But yeah, no, it's something that interests me as an internet linguist, I guess, because looking at, like, Twitter data of, like, what are people saying on Twitter and how are people using, creative respellings to represent their speech more closely than a standardized representation does, which people definitely do.
It's like a new era of early Old English manuscripts where you could trace them to the region they were from because of the accent. Like, it just makes me so happy to read something and, like, feel connected to that person because they are doing a great kind of iDialect impression of Australian English.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Well, it makes me think of how I used to teach quote-unquote developmental English at a community college, and many of my students were African-American English speakers, and they would take the G off of words that, the ing, which is very typical pattern in African-American English, but I was, like, expected to mark that as something that was incorrect.
Apparently that used to be, like, an affluent form of British English to
really?
G drop in, like, Southern English.
And
which just shows how, like, arbitrary
arbitrary.
the social values we impose on particular sounds.
And there's another one too, because apparently, so English used to have two ings, one of which, or two things that have now become the modern ing ending. One of which was like a gerund, and one of which was like a noun, so like the one in thing and stuff like that. And even people who have So like I don't think anybody says thin for thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, even people who are really, really robust quote unquote G droppers
Yeah.
never drop it, quote unquote drop it there.
Right.
So there's a thing that's going on that's grammatical about that.
Yeah.
And one of the endings, and I don't remember this exact story, but one of the endings was originally like ENDE, ende.
Ah.
And so the in ending kind of reflects this historical ending that didn't have a G on it in the first place.
Interesting.
And so what people are doing has like really old roots in many dialects of English and just became stigmatized when the orthography switched to G, and there was this idea that like, oh, it should have this G because the G's there in the orthography.
Huh. That also reminds me of the axe thing, because the axe is older than ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we have this idea that English was like that older varieties of English were just one thing because that's what was written down, but it was always multiple ways of
Right.
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
As soon as you have more than one person.
And this dialect anxiety so there's this pronounced discourse in Australia of like American English is ruining Australian English, and Australian English is becoming less Australian and more American. And the examples people point out are often things that were really transitory and didn't actually stick around. And no one ever points out that, like, so for example, we don't refer to lorries for things like for trucks. So there are things that we refer to trousers as trousers and underwear as underwear, and pants are a form of trousers rather than a form of underwear. Whereas in British English, they're pants. So don't do what someone I know did once as an Australian and email your British employer and ask if there's a particular colour of pants they want you to wear. Because they'll be very confused about why you want a uniform for your underwear. But it speaks to this fact that like we do have a lot of things that we have in common with American English that we've never had in common with British English, really. And no one ever points to those as like American English is ruining Australian English.
Why is it always American English that's ruining English?
Well, I mean, this is this like thing, right? Is this anxiety that we have about the cultural hegemony, and like we do have a lot more exposure to American English than Americans have to us, which is why
True.
Same with
Australian
Canada.
actors can go to work in America and do a tolerable job of an American accent, and Americans just have vowels all over the place because suddenly you have to unmerge all this stuff that you never knew
Right.
was different anyway. You can pick a bad Australian accent so far away. It's great.
Canadian actors will have to like learn how to do an American accent, and like there's dialect coaches for
Yeah.
that and stuff like that. But like nobody ever even tries to learn a Canadian accent properly because it's like
No, they just
considered
fake
close
a
enough.
fake
Fake
a North
raising.
And
a
they-
North Dakotan accent.
But it's like, and they get Canadian raising wrong, and it drives
Yeah.
me bananas.
Yeah, it's not that hard, guys.
Well, it is if you don't have the phonemes, probably.
And
they-
you don't
but
have
they
the
do, right?
thousands of hours of
They
exposure.
don't have the diphthongs. Because like if like the about, they have and they have I, but they don't have that as a diphthong, and I don't know how to describe that to somebody.
Yeah, I
if
guess
you don't
that's
have
true.
it.
I guess that's true.
Like, so they're putting it as
But some Americans have the I one,
Yeah,
and
some
not
of
the
them do.
ow.
yeah.
And no American ever points out the I one. Actually, they never hear mice as like funny,
Yeah.
but they hear about as funny. And I always thought that was interesting. But I think it's because some Americans have the raising with the I and not the ow.
Yeah,
For
and I
mice?
think it's like it's acquired like a stereotype.
You have it too, I
sense.
think. Mice as opposed to mice.
Oh no.
So the thing that I learned like surprisingly late in life that I scream for it was supposed to be I scream for ice cream and not
Oh.
I scream for ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
they're supposed to be that like it was created by someone for whom those are the same vowel.
Yeah.
But because I have Canadian raising in ice,
Hang on, can you do it again? Because they sound like the same vowel to me.
that's because you don't have Canadian raising.
But you do it, Canadian.
I scream for ice cream.
Okay,
It's slightly shorter and higher.
right. I'm just gonna have to believe you on that.
We can show you the spectrogram.
That would be great.
Like I even have high school. High school.
High school.
I mean, we have Australian English has pretty high vowels anyway.
Okay.
So
What do
high
you-
school is already pretty high.
No, that's
not
lower.
as high
Yeah.
as ours.
How do you say the ice cream thing?
Ice cream for ice cream.
Yeah, it's almost the same.
It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ice cream for ice cream. I'm
How
like
about
those are two vowels.
Ice cream for ice cream.
Yeah,
No,
you
they're
have
different.
the raising.
Yeah.
Dear vocal fries listeners, just say ice cream for ice cream.
This is what linguists do when they get together.
Yeah, we're so nerdy. It's
Yeah.
insane.
I love you get 4 accents in a room.
Yeah.
and
That's the
Hours-
beginning of a terrible joke.
hours of entertainment.
Like, I'm sorry, I was trying to pay attention to what you said, but I got distracted by your vowels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah, don't go on dates with linguists.
Or maybe do if you like that.
Yeah.
If you're already a linguist, maybe not.
Would you date someone for their accent?
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
I feel like it's such a like linguists saying, "Oh yeah," to that is definitely a different thing to people being like, "I think French accents are sexy."
Right.
Linguists are like, "Oh yeah, gotta get someone who's got some
merged-
quality Canadian raising."
You merged these 2 vowels, and I've never seen someone merge that way before.
Exactly. Literally everything is data.
But you need to keep some of your friends and family members linguistically naive, because then when your grammaticality intuitions get shot because you've been thinking about it for something too long, you have to be able to go ask your roommate or something
That's
like,
Yeah.
"Hey, can you say this
Yeah.
for me, just to make sure if it sounds
Having
grammatical to you?"
like lived now in the last 4 years, we've lived in Singapore, Southern England, and Australia, and then working all the time as I do with you as a Canadian and a bunch of American colleagues, like especially lexical intuitions. I have no intuitions about words anymore. I'm just like, I can't remember where I used that or if it's normal. So
Yeah, the dialect surveys where they're like, how do you pronounce this word? Like, is it leisure or leisure? I'm like,
depending on who I'm talking to.
both sound okay to me now. Like, I don't even know. In that case, I think it's leisure.
Now, you say aluminum, we say aluminium. You say centrifugal, we say centrifugal. You say leisure, we say leisure.
I don't know.
And a lot of stuff that I think of as a change in progress is actually I just moved to a different region.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. It's like I moved to a different region and it's actually a change in progress. I moved, so I grew up in Nova Scotia, and then I moved to Ontario for undergrad, and then I moved to Montreal for grad school. In Montreal, I don't have a lot of pressures on my English because most of the English speakers that I interact with are, from a variety of locations and have moved to Montreal, and the Montreal English is also a bit pluricentric. But Montreal French, so my French has gotten very Quebec since I moved to Montreal, which is great. I've been trying to make it more Quebec because I'm like, why should I speak European French anyway? It's just because of the French cultural hegemony. I'm Canadian, I should speak Quebec French.
Damn it.
Damn it.
And thanks to Nicole Rosen, I know that there's a difference.
Do you remember the differences?
No.
Okay.
So now I say, instead of saying fuck. I wasn't expecting you to be saying French. If I'm saying instead of tu sais, I have tu. So I have the frication on the high vowels, which is really fun. I can't even do them not fricated now. I used to do them not fricated, but I can't do it.
It's been really great working with you and discovering, I did, just to kind of bring my own biases in here, I definitely had this view that American English was all of North American English, and I do tend to forget that you are also part of the Commonwealth. It's like a surprise I go and same person's on the money, which is
true.
problematic in other ways.
Yes.
But I always I've learnt so much about Canadian English and just how
And a lot of
different it is.
Canadians orient towards a more British standards as a way of not seeming American.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
but can you tell, because we talked about this in our, well, we didn't talk about it in the colour episode, but we did an episode about the semantics of different colour terms. And then when it came, I was like, oh no, Gretchen, we have to write the episode description and whose colour spelling are we going to use, because I use COLOUR, which is definitely spelled correctly just then. And
I was like, no, I have OUR,
Yeah.
because I, labor and color and favor
and
and
I
favorite.
did not know that about Canadian English, but it's a thing that
So we've decided kind of for the podcast, all our descriptions are, our house style is Canadian/Australian, which is basically whatever we think it is. Because we don't have adequate spell checks for it, and so just whoever's writing it writes it the way they want to, and that's how we do it. And we ran into some controversy about this because we made t-shirts and mugs and stuff with not judging your grammar, just analyzing it on them, because this is a common linguist sentiment that we have to correct.
and I didn't even think about it when we did it, but we obviously spelled analyze with an S.
And since then, we've gotten a bunch of people, Americans being like, but do you have one with a Z or with a Z on it? And we're like, no? Doesn't have to be about you?
No.
If you can't wear a shirt with an S on it,
Especially
you don't deserve to wear this shirt.
that shirt of all shirts. If you can't be non-judgy on a mug,
that says
you're not judgy, then you don't get the mug.
Like, you missed the entire point of this exercise. And I think we would have faced a lot less flack if we had done the Z spelling.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Because, like, people who aren't Americans are more used to the world not catering
I was
to
going to
them.
say, Americans expect things to be the way that we want them to be.
Well, also in this case, I would spell this with a Z as well.
I would have spelled it with a Z too, but Lauren had made it with the S, and I was
it's
like,
fine.
I'm not changing it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would have spelled it with a Z, but I was like, yeah, I'm amused by this. Like,
Yeah.
And it's one of the times I didn't think about it.
yeah, no, and I think it would be an interesting conversation piece. And most people were like, well, you could make both versions, and I was like, I don't think you see the point of, like,
Yeah.
you know, here's our house style. It is whatever we say it is. And maybe it's not your style, but you're wearing this as a way of participating in a particular type of thing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to, like, not make the podcast too American in a world where a lot of media is centered around the US.
Yeah.
We love you, American listeners.
We say this in the US, like, we like
love.
our American listeners, but we want to expose them to things outside of
Yes.
their...
We have the advantage where I am American, so we can just say it and our listeners can assume that I don't really mean everything I say.
You know, and it's very easy because, like, you know, especially as a Canadian, I go to a lot of American conferences. I have a lot of American colleagues who I like very much. But it's you know, it's very easy to start, you know, getting in that pattern of like, you know, everything's...
Yeah, even when I was in elementary school, we were allowed to spell words the Canadian way or the American way.
Yeah.
Was it you telling me the anecdote about Z and Z and
Yeah.
flipping?
There's this thing that happens that Jack Chambers, who's a Canadian linguist, has documented, where Canadian children will generally sing the alphabet song with Z at the end.
No, I never did.
Like, a lot of them. I should have done a test on it for you. Anyway, like, Carrie, how did you sing the alphabet song? Canadian children will often sing the alphabet song with Z at the end. And they'll often say Z at the end when they're reciting the alphabet up until around the age of, like, 10 to 16. And then they switch to Z, which is a weirdly late age for acquisition stuff.
It must look like it's changed.
And so it looks like it's change in progress. It looks like the kids are just, you know, becoming Americanized and watching Sesame Street and, like, adopting this thing. Except you can keep doing it. Like, a decade later or 2 decades later, and still the little kids are using Z, but the 20-somethings who were your teenagers and your little kids have now switched to Z. So, like, my mom, when she was a kid, I asked her, she would have said Z, and now she says Z. When I was a kid, I sang the alphabet song with Z, and then I switched to Z.
Okay, I know why I didn't. My mother would have yelled at me.
Yeah.
So
So once people acquire it as an identity token, they switch to Z, and they're very adamant about it. And I, like, I wouldn't admit that I had ever used a Z, because, like, that's this thing that distinguishes us from those people to the south.
sometimes language
shibboleth.
language contact can drive change apart as
Yes.
well as change
Yeah,
towards.
yeah, because they did this study on, I think it was Buffalo and Windsor, Ontario. Where's Buffalo?
New York.
New
That's
York.
right. That's right.
No, but that's not next to Windsor. Anyway,
Two
two
places.
cities.
Oh, Niagara. Isn't it?
Niagara, St. Catharines. No,
St.
but it's like,
Yeah, the St. Catharines is right there. right?
what's on the U.S. side then?
Buffalo's like right at
Is
the
that
border.
Buffalo?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's right
it
at
is
the border.
Buffalo. Okay, great.
None of this means anything to me.
Yeah, Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna start talking about. I hate that sentence.
No, so those two cities, they've done, like, linguistic dialect surveys in them. And they actually talk more differently from each other than people who are further in from the border. Because people really want to identify, like, where they're from.
That's interesting.
I guess I should be the American and ask what the fuck Z is.
Who's Zed?
Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.
It's
The
just
last
Z.
letter of the alphabet.
So it's a synonym.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just our name for it versus your name for it.
Okay.
I mean, it's like, I don't know, like pop versus soda or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
it's just other names for it. Like, most of the letters of the alphabet only have the one name, but this one, it has two.
All right. Because I heard you say Z, and I was like, that's just how you say Z so that everyone understands that you're saying Z.
But you have it as, like, a disambiguation, like,
Oh.
international phonetic alphabet, or not, like, the NATO alphabet thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've never encountered that use. That's interesting.
Me either.
It's like saying 0 instead of O on the phone or something for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
like Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
M as in Michael type thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Huh. I didn't realize anybody did that.
The
No.
Z of the NATO phonetic alphabet is Zulu. Just
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah. So they don't have Z. They could have like Zeta or something there, but I don't know. They don't.
Yeah.
Because Z comes from like Greek Zeta, and it got
Changed over time.
changed. Anyway, I don't know. I think more of our letters should have like real names for them rather than just like the sound followed by E, because then we wouldn't have this phone problem in the first place. But
It's true. But it is kind of fun to have, like, this code.
it does make it easy for the alphabet song to rhyme. I
Yes.
tried to write an alphabet song in IPA once, and it did not go well because nothing rhymed.
Yeah.
And also the stress was very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, P, B, T, D, K, G, glottal stop. And then it was like, do you say the name of the sound, or do you say like the sound itself, like the name of
Yeah.
the symbol? Because like some of the stuff, like even linguists using a P will generally just say P.
Yeah.
But like glottal stop, like doesn't have a name other than glottal stop,
Go.
so it did not go well.
No. I can imagine.
I just got worried for you guys. Are you going to the thing?
The word of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Do we have, like, a last
That's okay.
thing
Okay.
that
Yeah,
you want to...
Thing we want to...
Like, what do you want to tell our listeners?
while you're thinking about that, I'm going to say that I'm an American, so I didn't think about these as issues. I'm so sorry. I was like, the keyboard and the spell check works for me. Never thought about how it wouldn't work for other dialects. Even American
you
English.
succeeded at not being an asshole.
Thank you. I was being an asshole before.
That's that's the thing is I don't necessarily want to ensure that everyone does spell things a certain way, although my
No,
way would
right.
obviously be preferable. But just, and it's just one of those things like in Australia, like life goes on, even though I did read a bunch of books that had American spellings, and there's like even lexical items. Like when I was a kid, like I still don't really know what pumps are or bangs are, but they were in the Babysitter's Club books, and so like we just got on with lexical variation, and like those things are actually really common things, but I don't really have a visual for them in my head, but I do. It's a very specific like Babysitter's Club aesthetic, and I think like allowing more people to have more of that exposure then makes them more open-minded about. So like we get exposed to a lot of American and British accents on television and a lot of lexical variation, and I think when Australians travel they do a better job of adapting to that variation they're exposed to. And so I think just
Whereas
exposing
I have like a difficult time with your vowels because I don't have any Australian media that I've been exposed to since a young
you
age.
should have
and all
watched
this
more
stuff.
Neighbours, Gretchen.
I didn't watch Neighbours, but I watched Home and Away a lot.
I watched Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries.
Good
It was
one.
Pretty great.
That's good.
It's pretty good, but that was like much later.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think I was just thinking because we're going to be heading to the Word of the Year vote. There is no one declares a Canadian Word of the Year at the moment. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so that's something that has been kind of on my radar because we did a Word of the Year episode last year, and I was like, the Australian National Dictionary had done that, and I thought, geez, no one.
We have the Australian
Australian
National
Canada.
Dictionary and Macquarie. We
Oh,
have
did
two.
they each declare a Word
Yeah,
of the
they
Year?
do. Yeah.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah.
So there are 2 Australian Word of the Years. There's a bunch of like American ones.
No Canadian.
And there's no Canadian Word of the Year. And like, we've got to get somebody on that, Carrie. Let's do this.
Let's
And
do
the,
it.
and the British, of course, have the Oxford Dictionary, which just presumes to name the word of the year for everyone.
Yeah,
Right. As they do.
As they do.
as they do.
So it's not necessarily about changing your English or the way you spell or the way you use words, but just being open to exposing yourself to podcasts by people who don't speak the same accent
Yeah.
as you. And it is a bit harder at the start, but it's really worthwhile.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah,
and even
like,
just as a
accepting that more languages can be pluricentric and like
Yeah.
standardization isn't an inherent good when it comes to language.
It's definitely not.
It's in fact terrible.
Yeah.
I think that's what Americans should take away. As I'm hearing y'all, that we should think about how so much of the media we don't have to worry about fitting in when it comes to that.
Or
In that
standardizing,
sense.
like just accepting that Harry Potter was written in British English I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
but then
whole
they
other...
switched things.
Yeah, they did.
We
For
got
our
we got the
copies.
British versions though, so I had to
Yeah.
deal with trainers, and I
Yeah.
didn't know what a trainers were. And then like, so I was like, I guess there's just things that Harry Potter wears, and I was like, oh, you mean sneakers? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we called them runners where I grew up.
Yeah.
I'm a runner's person as well.
Oh, nice.
These nice commonalities across countries.
Commonwealth represent.
But I'm a sneakers person because I'm from the Maritimes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, there's all this stuff, and I think having space for multiple different varieties of speaking, even within something that we call a language, is something that there isn't enough attention to.
Agreed. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's a good place to end.
Sounds like a great place to end.
So thanks for being our guests.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah, we had
awesome.
to take this opportunity.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Yes.
And don't be an asshole.
You say basil, we say basil, and you say herbs, and we say herbs, because there's a fucking H in it. But you spell through, T-H-R-U, and I'm with you on that, because we spell it thruff. And that's trying to cheat at Scrabble. How can we get that ooh sound? Well, a U will work. What about an O as well? No, we don't need it, we're fine. No, I think an O in. Well, all right. And a G as well. What? Yes, a G would be good. Yes, we need a silent G, just in the background, in case of any accidents or something. Well, all right. And an H as well. Fucking hell, hang on. An H in case some herbs come along. All right. And a Q, and a P, and a Z. Look, it's a word in Scrabble that's 480 points.
The Vocal Fries podcast is produced by Chris Ayres for Halftone Audio. Theme music by Nick Granum. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Vocal Fries Pod. You can email us at vocalfriespod@gmail.com.